football team nation, what is going on? Morgan Moses cut, Jerron Christian cut, out with the old and with the new. Todd, OTA is just now starting up. We see pictures, we see videos. How you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. You left out one cut, one big one that everyone was talking about. Mrs. BJ.
Oh yeah, I saved that one
BJ
for you.
Good. I'll tell you what, when I saw that, the first reaction I just had is, man, Ron Rivera is ruthless. I don't really know the circumstances. I feel like he probably didn't, just fire her. She was crying. But yeah, it was, like you said, out with the old and with the new. And it's nice because with Morgan Moses and Christian, and I assume as BJ, you have younger people to come in and fill the role.
Develop.
Obviously, with Miss BJ, doesn't matter if they're younger. But I'm feeling good because we actually saw some on the field stuff. It was just something to hold us over for the next couple months of this, kind of lull. So that's how I'm feeling. Other than that, there's too many cicadas outside. How are you feeling though?
I'm doing well, man. I can't complain. I was just watching a video on cicadas and it's pretty interesting. I saw two mating on my tires.
They seem
really
to love
weird.
car tires.
Oh my goodness. But
it's like their purpose in life is literally to mate and then die. We got to get it in while we can.
oh man.
Yeah.
So yeah, other than that, man, it's good seeing Fitzpatrick out there throwing the football, flinging it around.
Yeah.
Seeing Jamin Davis out there running, leading the charge after a pick. And I just love the youth movement that's coming on.
Yeah.
And, Ron just sticking to the guns and doing what he knows, what he thinks is best. So
yeah. Speaking of that youth movement, you kind of look to, it's obviously it's towards the end of May. So you got June, July, August, so September, it's got a little bit of ways to go, but Rivera has said and proven that he's not afraid to start young players. So a couple of things that wouldn't surprise me at all if week one, nickel, you got St. Just, William Jackson the third outside, and Kendall Fuller in the slot. You wouldn't surprise me if you've got Terry McLaurin and De'Ami Brown outside, Curtis Samuel in the slot. Like John Bates, I think, is going to be your number two in two tight end sets. He's going to get those young guys out there. Cosme, I think, is going to start a right tackle. He's going to throw them out there. It's like he's not doing it willy-nilly. They have to earn the opportunity with their work and preparation. But if they do that, then go show us what you got. I love that. I have always been for letting the young players play. It feels like in the past, it's always been. I mean, Mike Shanahan brought in Joey Galloway when he was like 39. And so I'm all for it. So it was just nice to see something out there. And then we had 86 out of 90 people attending, right? Yeah. Chase Young and Montez Sweat not there, but they'll be ready to roll. So it's nice, man. As always, these episodes are brought to you by Hot Chikn Kitchn in Dumfries or Woodbridge, Virginia. Go try them out. They're just fantastic. Like seriously, their chicken is just so good. It's just so good. It's a nice, good piece of chicken. It's drenched in the. They don't. You know how Popeyes and other places just kind of spread a little sauce on top. No, I mean Hot Chikn Kitchn. They fully. They like it. It dives in head first. The piece of chicken, and it stays under there for a minute. So it's like drenched in the sauce. It's fantastic.
Nicely glazed too.
Yes.
Shiny.
And it's not like you never take a bite where there isn't chicken, where you only get, it's just fried perfectly. It's fantastic. So try them. And then if you're on your way to Hot Chikn Kitchn and you also realize that your credit score is lower than what you would like it to be, if you're trying to get a car and they say, hey, we'll hook you up with a 25% interest rate. And that's a great deal. If anyone ever tells you that, call Dunn Pro Financial and let them fix your credit because 25% interest is absolutely terrible.
Oh my goodness.
So Dunn Pro Financial, fix your credit. Hot Chikn Kitchn, get your stomach right, and tell them Tay and Todd sent you. We have a super awesome guest today, Matt Miller, formerly of Bleacher Report, now of ESPN, kind of a self-made draft expert analyst, in the NFL circles. He sat down with us, which was really cool, Tay. And he really liked Washington and what they'd done this year.
Right.
I won't give it all away, but he loved it. I mean, you could read it. He said Jamin Davis, he predicted him for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He liked the other picks they made. So we were asking about that. We were asking him some stuff about the team. And it was some really good input. We got as many questions in as we could. So it was a great conversation. So, we're going to go into that. You got anything else to touch on?
That's it.
I see you were able to get that cut finally, though.
Yeah. So they may see the discrepancy in the videos.
What?
Right?
What'd you say?
They may see the discrepancy in the
yeah,
videos.
That's right, because we're recording this
right
after Matt Miller. So so he's cut now, and then you're going to keep watching, and he's going to be uncut again. Oh, yeah. Okay. And then after that, we'll be back. We'll be good again. We'll be cut again.
Right. We'll be good again. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to go into our interview with Matt Miller. And here we go. We are delighted to be joined by Matt Miller. You may know him as at NFL Draft Scout, works for ESPN, is an NFL draft expert by every account. And we are delighted to have you. Thanks so much for joining us, Matt.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's always good to be on new podcasts and meet new people. And I'm appreciative when you guys ask me to do this.
Oh, well, absolutely. You've built a reputation for yourself, one that speaks for itself as well. So we definitely appreciate your time and look forward to getting your expert input on some things. So I'm just going to go right into it so we can get you on your way. First, I want to ask you just overall, briefly, how would you grade, maybe not a letter grade, but just how would you grade Washington's draft?
Yeah, I thought they did a really nice job. And I know a lot of people, the first thing they're going to look at is the combination of team needs versus, how many of those boxes did you check? And obviously everyone's going to look at quarterback and be like, oh, they didn't get a quarterback. This is not a good draft. I think that requires a lot of context to say, okay, where they were at, they weren't able to really go get a quarterback, right? And we saw Chicago do that. That's probably going to be the argument. It's like, well, Chicago did it. Well, one team was able to do it, right? So right. That's not to say that everyone could have. So I also think that you have to look at unlike Chicago, and I'm a big fan of Washington's roster, especially on defense. I don't feel like this was a team that was a quarterback away from being an elite contender. Maybe the Chicago Bears feel like they are, so they did that. I don't necessarily think they are. But I think for Washington, it was really smart to wait, honestly, to just play it safe and to check boxes at offensive tackle, to check boxes at linebacker, to add speed at wide receiver, to really just go through corner was such a huge need for this team. And you get a starting level corner. So I think personally, looking at this roster, yes, they needed a quarterback. No, they did not get one, but they also needed a lot of other things. So I think the 2021 draft is a success for Washington because I think they got 4 to 5 starting caliber players out of this draft class. If you can do that, that is a really, really good draft. And I think they've been able to accomplish that.
Awesome. Go ahead, Tay.
Okay. Yeah. And so what was your favorite pick one? And then what do you think, which pick did you think they got the best value?
Yeah, I went crazy when they picked Jamin Davis. I mean, and that was I loved that guy. And in the draft process, you find players and you're like, yo, that's my dude. And it's not because maybe you didn't see them first or whatever. It might not even be the guy that you're highest on, but you just associate yourself with players sometimes in this job. And so with Jamin Davis, I remember texting with his agent early in the process, right after the season ended. And his agent was like, yeah, we got this guy. You need to take a look at him because no one's talking about him. And I don't really know why. The school didn't give him a good grade. He's not on a lot of, media big boards. Will you watch him and just tell me what you think? So I watched 3 games and I texted his agent back and I was like, this he'll be in my top 32 tomorrow. This is where the hell did you find this player? Right. Because it's kind of, 1 year at Kentucky, but man, so I loved that pick. And to have him, not only is Jamin Davis great, he is, but you have him behind the NFL's best defensive line. It's I'm not a Washington fan, right? But I got giddy on draft night being you're going to let Jamin Davis run around behind that defensive line. The NFL's stupid for letting this happen. All these other teams should not have let this happen. It's going to be crazy. I grew up a Niners fan. And what I've told people is I remember when Patrick Willis was running behind Justin Smith and Aldon Smith. That's what this is going to be. You're just going to have that guy who's kept so clean and he's just going to be able to eat. But Jamin's a better athlete. He can actually rush off the edge. So it's just going to be phenomenal. I think best value is Diami Brown, though. The wide receiver out of North Carolina. I wouldn't have been shocked if he had gone in the top 50. He's just – I see him as that type of playmaker. And so to get him in round 3 and with their 4th pick in the draft, I thought that was amazing value. And, obviously this wide receiver core has really been boosted the last couple of years through the draft and free agency. I'm a gigantic Terry McLaurin fan. Obviously getting Curtis Samuel there is going to make things a lot more fun. But Diami Brown is going to give you another outside wide receiver. He can also, I think he can win from the slot as well. So that value in middle of round 3 and for it to be your 4th pick in the draft is just insane.
Okay, so I saw you say, get your money in, I guess, on Jamin Davis for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Oh, absolutely.
So for this question, I'm going to exclude him since that's the easy choice. After
Okay.
Jamin Davis, 2nd to 7th round, which rookie could you see having the most immediate impact, best rookie year, even the less quantifiable ones like tackle or safety?
Yeah.
Which one would you pick?
I would have picked Sam Cosmi, not just because I'm a Texas fan, but because that need a left tackle. But then you all go get Charles Leno.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, where's Cosmi going to play? And, obviously we'll see what happens with Morgan Moses, but I would have picked Cosmi. I think I'll go like sleeper a little bit. I can see John Bates having a really big impact. And I know rookie tight ends don't usually make a lot of noise, but that just feels like in this offense, especially with Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback, I think the tight end's going to get a lot of play. I mean, look what Mike Gesicki was like his favorite dude with the Dolphins. And I know they didn't have a lot of wide receivers last year due to injury, but I think we'll see the tight end position get a lot of play in this offense. So for John Bates, who being a 4th round pick, not a household name necessarily headed into this process, but I think his pass catching ability is really good. He's able to find space. He can box guys out. So I think that would be somebody who's not Jamin Davis is going to have a big rookie impact. I wouldn't be shocked if it's him.
Okay, good, Dave.
Okay, and obviously we have a different regime now in Washington. You got Ron Rivera, he's in charge, and you have Martin Mayhew and Hurney and those guys. How would you say that the front office is viewed now as opposed to previous years under Rivera?
Yeah, it's completely different. And not just the front office. I think the entire organization, the moves that they've made, I think, trying to be aware of some of the past problems and trying to correct those. I think that's a huge thing. And with Ron Rivera coming in, he's one of the most respected coaches in the NFL. And everyone really trusts him. I mean, that goes back to his days as a position coach in Chicago. But then you bring in respected long-time NFL front office people like, Martin Mayhew, like Marty Hurney, guys who've been general managers and have done it at the highest level. I think that shows like that they wanted stability. You could have gone and got a young guy, right? You could have hired somebody, a Brad Holmes or someone who's, an assistant somewhere or a scout somewhere. But I actually like that they went and said, let's go get 2 guys who've done this before. And also with Marty Hurney, get someone who really knows Ron Rivera well and can pick the type of players that Ron wants. So I think that's the important aspect of this is there's not that learning curve, that we see in other places where, the New York Giants fire their coach. Okay, well, now you got to figure out as a front office what Joe Jacobs wants or Joe Judge wants, excuse me. And Joe's got to figure out what your scouting philosophy is and what type of players you want in terms of your culture. Now y'all get to cut out that learning curve. There's no acclimation period. So I think that's super important. And really, this year's draft was a very good draft. And I think that's a lot of the reason why is because they're already on the same page. They're in lockstep in terms of what they want. They can identify weaknesses in the roster. And then, the front office can say, okay, we can find you guys to fit and we know what type of player you want. So I think that's huge.
Okay, so one last one. I want to just briefly touch on the back half of the draft. I know I'm going a bit off script here, Tay, but last one. Rounds 5 through undrafted. You had Derek Forrest, William Bradley King, Shaka Toney. We probably don't have to talk about Cameron Cheeseman much. Right. And then Dax Milne and Jarrett Patterson. Of those 5 guys, which name stuck out to you most? Most of them, or some of them may not make the roster, but
yeah, Dax Milne is the one. And, I was telling you, when I started watching Jamin Davis, but when I started watching Zach Wilson, it was like, who's this dude that's catching everything? Like he's catching everything. And I, even like in our office here, like watching film, I'm like, hey, like somebody write that receiver's number down. Cause that dude has sticky hands. And no, he's not the biggest, he's not the fastest, but man, he makes plays and you see him like winning on 50-50 balls consistently. And he's got very strong hands. He's got, he's a good route runner for what he is athletically. So, 7th round wide receiver, damn near the last pick of the draft, getting down there. So it's like, you don't expect that guy to be great, but I wouldn't be shocked if he finds a role as a 4th or 5th receiver and eventually climbs that ladder and makes the plays that we saw make at BYU.
Gotcha. Awesome. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah. Okay. So why are you high on Washington and what are some real expectations that we can look forward as fans?
Yeah. I recently wrote an article just grading every team's roster basically after the draft and free agency. And I was shocked at how much I liked Washington's roster. And I think there's still some question marks at corner. We got to figure out what the offensive line is going to look like, but I really like this roster. And I think, with Ryan Fitzpatrick, no, he's not a long-term solution, but you're going to get a lot of stability. And there's 2 to 3 quarterbacks behind him who have NFL starting experience and they can play if need be. So I think if you can get some consistency at the quarterback position, it's a playoff team. And even knowing that Dallas is going to have Dak back and hopefully, or maybe not since it's a Washington podcast, but they're going to have both their tackles back, you would think. So I do think, though, that, the Giants, who knows what the Giants are. And with Philly, that just seems like kind of a mess right now, right? So I do think that Washington's in a good position with, you have such a strength on the defensive line that's going to make that secondary look better than it is. Now you have a great young linebacker to go with an already really good group. So I think that you can win by controlling the trenches still in the NFL, and you have playmakers at wide receiver. So even though you don't have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback or Dak Prescott, you still have someone who can be a facilitator, and you now have these receivers who can make plays after the catch. You have a very good running back who can make things happen dynamically. You mentioned Jarrett Patterson, who I loved at Buffalo. I could see him being a player as a UDFA who makes a big splash. So I just think the roster is really solid, and maybe it's like oversimplification, but there really aren't that many weaknesses, especially if you consider that you're going to get solid veteran quarterback play.
Okay, so talking about that quarterback play, Fitzpatrick, a 1-year stopgap who could, do something for the team for the year, but obviously you have to look long-term. I don't know how much you've gotten into the 2022 draft. I know that the 21 just ended 3 weeks ago, but if you could briefly maybe touch on some quarterback options next year, because Washington will undoubtedly be in the market, just early look at some guys we should maybe keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is next year's draft class does not have like the Trevor Lawrence type prospect, but it's deeper at quarterback. So that's the fun part. It's like we'll be tracking a lot more guys. Sam Howell at North Carolina is probably the biggest name. Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma, another big name. Keaton Slovis at USC. Those would probably be your quote unquote front runners, your household names. But there are a lot of players outside of that who I am very intrigued by. Malik Willis at Liberty is a really good run pass option. Carson Strong at Nevada, great arm strength, no pun intended on the last name. Incredible production last year, so he could be one of those guys that takes the next step and ends up, becoming something special. But I think next year's class is quite a bit deeper, to where there will be I think more competition for those top quarterback spots, instead of like Trevor Lawrence has been slotted in forever. Justin Fields has really been slotted in forever. Of course, we had some risers as well with Mac Jones and Trey Lance and Zach Wilson, and we probably will next year as well, but it seems like a deeper class overall.
Okay. And then if I can go just to the NFC East real quick from those other teams, what were some of your favorite picks that they made, Giants, Cowboys, and Eagles?
Yeah, man, I crushed the Cowboys draft. Cowboys fans are probably still pissed at me for that one, because I liked Micah Parsons. I really did. I didn't quite understand the rest of their draft strategies, to be completely honest. I liked that the Eagles, were aggressive, and we saw that happen, throughout the draft process. Really, it's like, okay, we're going to move back, we're going to move up. So I think for Philly to get Devontae Smith is obviously huge. To pair him back with Jalen Hurts, to give them that top wide receiver that they need. And then I liked that the Giants finally traded. We finally saw Dave Gettleman do it. I think he's addicted to it now. But, for the Giants as well, it's like to get Kenny Galladay and be like, okay, we think they have the receiver, but then they go get Kadarius Toney, who's a completely different type of guy. So I like that they're looking at Daniel Jones and saying, all right, it's time to figure out if this guy's it or not. And the best way to do that, I think, is surround him with talent. And they did the offensive line last year. They shored up some weaknesses there. And I know they like Matt Pert at right tackle quite a bit. So now it's okay, let's give Daniel Jones some weapons and get healthy Saquon back and see if this guy's our quarterback of the future.
Okay. Tay, do you have any more? If not, I've got two last ones.
I don't know.
Okay, so just two that aren't Washington football specific. They're you specific, Matt. First one, you've been doing this for a while. What draft hit are you most proud of? And then what draft miss are you most ashamed of? Any team.
Man, the ashamed ones are the easy ones, because you remember those so quickly, right? I think the player that I'm most proud of was probably Michael Thomas. I would tell anybody who would listen that he was the best receiver in that draft. So for him to fall to the second round, become the player that he's been, that's good validation, right? That's what you want in this industry.
Right.
The misses, man. This one's front of mind because I just saw that a good friend of mine, Daniel Jeremiah, interviewed Luke Kuechly. And I remember writing Luke up and being like, man, this guy, he just makes tackles downfield. Like, he's not very attacking. He's kind of small. And funny story, one year at the Super Bowl, I was hosting some media for when I was at Bleacher Report, and Luke Kuechly came up to me and he was like, I still remember what you said about me pre-draft. And I was like, dude, I was wrong. I was so wrong. And he quoted the scouting report, and he's like, no, it motivated me. So thank you for writing it. And it's like, that was a big one that, that's like when guys end up Hall of Famers and you're like, oh man, come on. What? And I still had a first round grade on him, right? But it was way too low. So that one's always going to bother me.
It sounds like you may have contributed to him becoming a Hall of Famer, though. He may
I
not
like
have
to
reached
think
his
I had
potential.
a hand in that, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe I'll make the induction speech. We'll see.
Okay, last one. The NFL draft is unique. It's like an economy in of itself, right? You have so many different publications or media outlets that talk about it. You have lots of people who just want to create something for themselves in the field. You've built yourself up into, the Matt Miller that we're talking to right now, who is, the expert in NFL draft scout. And so I'm wondering what advice you have for anyone who may watch or listen to this and who is kind of, I guess, ultimately trying to do what you do.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to not give up. I started this as like a part-time job and a hobby when I was in my late teens and was able to turn it into a career. Right. And so, but one thing that I have seen over the long time that I've been doing this is a lot of people come in and they're hungry and they got all this energy and they have all these ideas. And if it doesn't happen quickly, they give up, or life happens and they move on. And like that happened, life happened for me as well. But I always kind of kept this on the side of something I was trying to build and grow. So I think that's the biggest thing, no matter what age you are. Like if you want to get into this and make it a career, it takes a moment, right? It took me writing for free for a long time before Bleacher Report hired me. And it took me 10 years at Bleacher Report before I, got to ESPN. So it takes time. And so that's the biggest thing is when it doesn't happen overnight, like it's okay. And I think like a big thing for me that I tell myself all the time is like, I'm so goal driven that I need to remind myself to like enjoy the trip instead of just focusing on the destination. So I think that's a lot of it is like where the path that you have to take to get to it being a full-time job. Like it is a grind and it's hard and you want to give up a lot, but like there's looking back now, like I can enjoy it and be like, oh, okay, like that staying up all night writing articles was fun, and like you kind of miss that every now and then in a weird way. So I think that's the big part of it.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks so much for your time, Matt. We know you're busy, but we appreciate you being gracious, answering our questions. And, we just hope to continue reading your stuff and hopefully talk again in the future.
That sounds great, guys. Have a good day.
Thanks. You too.